What is a facial feature decoding expert?
So it's people who are trained. It's actually taught to attorneys, it's taught to authors, and it's taught to artists on how to understand other people based on their facial features. It's based on something that's been around since the Greeks. It started in 500 BC. Aristotle was one of the first ones to really try and understand other people. And it's been around since that time. The really crazy part is it actually used to be part of the academic system until Henry VIII said, I don't like the idea that vagabonds and thieves can use this against their fellow man. And he had it yanked out of the academic system.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Well, I think it's perfect for what our audience is all about on this channel, which is mostly sales content and specifically for people that are in the real estate sales space. And so I think what we're going to go through today, Brian, will resonate a lot with the audience because we're meeting with people face to face
Yes.
every single day, looking to serve our clients at the highest level, acquire new clients. And a
Mhm.
lot of what you do, I think, can translate into the sales world. And so I'm really looking forward to it. So, yeah, if you want to get into it, I'd love to have you share your screen and kind of walk us through a 30,000 foot view of how this whole thing comes together. It'd be great.
Absolutely. We'll go over a little bit of the history, a little bit about it, and then we'll give them tactical information. So they have to stick to the end to get that part. But yes, how you can even look at someone's eyebrows and figure out how do you pitch them to use you as their listing person. So
I love it.
yeah, let me share the screen here. All right. All right. So I'm Brian Yawkey with subtleskills.com. Why do I call it subtle skills? Because you don't have to tell anybody what you're learning. And it's the skill that changed my life. It's what helped me go from being an introvert on the help desk to a regional vice president of sales. And it was all because when I learned to focus on other people, I learned how to get out of my own way. So, what are people kind of besides calling me the eyebrow guy? I'm also known as the people problem solver. Why is that? Because sometimes people are just confusing. And so this is an entirely new way to understand people in your life, including those that have been in your life for a very long time. Just easy ways to find me: Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, you name it. Everything is subtle skills. The reason I did that at first was because I had imposter syndrome and I didn't want to put my own name out there for a little bit. And the downside is now I'm stuck with it everywhere you go. But easy enough to find me. If you have questions, there's my email address. But the worst thing that people are going to get today is a way to get free food and drinks, learn how to get upgrades in hotels and airplanes. But we're going to more tailor it towards real estate, obviously. The big things that help me in my entire life are body language and then learning how to understand people based on their facial features. I mentioned being an introvert. I would go and pick up books trying to understand people better because I felt like I missed that day of school. Body language was a great place to start, but body language is reactive. And what's really cool about this is we'll learn a little bit later how it's proactive as well. And it's just another tool for your tool belt. In my mind, I've got a bunch of books here. I've got bookshelves over there. We should never stop learning, trying to improve, find new things. But this was the one that made the biggest change for me. The reason why it's more important than ever is because a lot of people spent a year and a half to 2 years in their house and they became leery and skeptical of meeting people. And so they don't have as many face-to-face communications as we used to. So we do a lot more over Zoom. Well, I mentioned body language is great, but it doesn't help me when I can only see this much of your face. And then people, for safety reasons, whatever reason they may be wearing a mask, even with this much real estate, you're going to learn today, and that was no pun intended, you're going to be able to understand people just a little bit better. And the cool thing about it is we can all look, we're in sales. And sometimes we suffer from commission breath. We're so excited. We want to help someone. We look like the person on the left, which is we're so focused on ourselves that we're pushing our agenda. And if you notice the people in the background, they're not paying attention. But when you learn to focus on other people and you give them your time and attention, because it's so rare in this day and age, because of this lovely device right here,
That's right.
that when you learn to do it, people give you their time and attention back. So as I mentioned before, it's based on something known as physiognomy, been around since the Greeks. The mind creates movement, movement creates muscle. And the crazy part is I mentioned that it used to be part of the academic system, but after today, you're never going to be the same because you're going to realize how often we talk about people's faces. So we say things like take one on the chin, keep a stiff upper lip. They've got an eye for this. They've got an ear for this. Keep your nose to the grindstone. Everything about our face is like a map that tells us where have we been and where are we today. It doesn't predict the future, but it tells us all how do we talk to each other. And it's really
Mm.
crazy. You can go down such a rabbit hole with this. And it's one of the things that absolutely changed my life. In 2010, I met a guy. I begrudgingly went to a dinner because a friend of mine was in town. She said, "Hey, let's go to dinner." I show up at the restaurant. She calls, says, "I'm not going to make it." I'm like, "Here we go." And she's like, "No, no, you got to come to this event that she was in town for. You have to meet this speaker." I said, "Why do I need to meet this speaker?" She goes, "Because he reads faces." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not going over there for that crap." And she finally convinced me to go, but I went with the agenda to prove that this guy was a fraud. If I have all these books on body language, how to win friends and influence people, and I've never heard of it, it can't be real. So I went to go show that this guy was, he's going to make up Barnum statements, which are things that are generic enough that they apply to us all, like, "Oh, you've had a hard time in life." And
Mm.
so I went with the intent to prove that this guy was a fraud, he was a fake, and the guy won me over, and it changed my life. I mentioned earlier, we're all kind of it's tough because every book you ever read in school, there was only two ways to describe the characters, and that was through their actions and through their facial features. So authors used to take the courses in physiognomy for character development. They had to learn how to describe who was a hero and who was a villain. Other people who did that is artists. So that's why when you turn on any Disney show, you automatically know who's a hero, who's a villain. We've been trained our entire lives what faces mean. And it's not about judgment. It's about learning how do they take in and process information. So you can say, "Oh, well, they've got a villain's eyebrow, they got a downturned nose, all these things." Well, I have an angled eyebrow, and I can tell you, and we're actually going to learn what that means later. So it's just how do I take in information? How do I process information? And how do I prefer to be spoken to? So imagine the minute you go in and you talk to someone, they open their door. Instead of just saying, "Hey, please use me," you learn how to speak their language about you and your product. And that's the big change for it. So, what's the product? I want to list your house. I want to help you buy a house. You're providing the same service, but you're going to talk to people differently based on what their face tells you about them.
Let me just jump in for
Yeah.
1 second. So that's super interesting, right? So as a coach, I spend a lot of time working on communicating with different personality styles. And to your point earlier, I think this will be great to add to our tool belt so we know how to communicate to people the way in which they like to be communicated with. And I
That's
think that's exactly what we're going to focus on.
yes. And look, for people who are who are listening and going, "I don't know." Trust me, I was the exact same way. I learned this in 2010. It's what changed my life, but it's because I went out and put it to the test. Is it 100%? No. Is it high 90s? Yeah.
It's
So,
huge.
yeah. Okay. People ask all the time, what about genetics? It's 60% what you're born with, 40% what happens to you from the day you're born. That's called epigenetics. And that's why you can even take a look at the picture of the guy here where he's got big upper body and little tiny legs. That's not genetics. That's what muscles he chose to move when he went to the gym, right? We all know that guy that always skips leg day.
That's
It's
right.
not genetic. People ask all the time, they're like, "Okay, let's see it in action." This is a picture of me, oops, sorry, at 18 versus 38. So what you can notice where the arrows are, my ears used to stick out more, farther away from my head. My eyebrows used to be straight instead of angled like they are now. And then my eyes used to angle down. And we're going to learn a little bit about what those two features mean in a second. So 48 muscles in the face. I'm sorry, 42 muscles in the face. And what happens is the mind creates movement, movement creates muscle. So when our parents said, "Don't make that face or it'll get stuck that way," there's some legitimacy to it. They just didn't know what they were saying. People ask all the time, "What about Botox, plastic surgery?" Well, you're just basically, if you're doing plastic surgery, the number one plastic surgery right now is lip enhancement. The reason why is when we say the phrase, "keep a stiff upper lip," that means be stoic. Don't share your emotions or your feelings. So subconsciously, if somebody has a flatter upper lip, then we think, "Oh, don't ask them a lot of personal questions." That's the reason why lip enhancement is being done. Now, I follow a bunch of lip injection specialists on Instagram. What they also do is they create that Cupid's bow, which is a little arrow in your lips, kind of like you see on the guy right here, and you
Yeah.
see the girl right here. That's a subconscious sign that says, "Listen to me when I talk."
Mm.
So most people are, if you're lucky enough to be born genetically with it, great. But people who have their lips done, they put that arrow in there too. And then when I talk to them, I'm like, "Do you guys know why you do that?" They're like, "No." And I showed them. They're like, "Oh, we didn't know that." The crazy thing is, women have been doing this forever because with makeup, they're already saying, "These are the parts of my face that I want you to pay attention to." And to make it a very simple analogy, when the kid gets their face painted, they become the character on their face. Women do the same thing with makeup. It's kind of crazy, I know. Uh, this is the game changer, the absolute what your audience will love. And that is, this was the first proactive sales skill I ever ran across.
Mm.
So what did we do? You and I were talking before we started. What did I do to prepare for this? I stalked you on your podcast, right? I went and looked at your website.
Sure.
What do you offer? Who's your audience? By the way, 98,000 subscribers. That's pretty damn good. 98.7 this morning. So obviously we stalk people to a degree, but this is a different way to do it. So now what you can do is you can go and look people up on social media. You can find a picture of their face if you know who you're meeting with, and you can start tailing your pitch even before you ever send them an email or before you pick up the phone. You think, oh, this is how they take in and process information. Now, it can be used reactively as well. So when I go to networking events, I don't know who's going to be there, but I just look for these features and I start figuring out, how do I speak their language? And you can tell.
Interesting. Let me ask you this. I mean, that is an interesting point, the proactive piece.
Mhm.
So when you were looking me up, was there anything that came to mind with my face that you saw on social media that you said, wow, well, he likes to be communicated this way. I'd love to get your insights on that.
Oh, absolutely. You want to pause this and we'll actually take a look at your face real fast?
Yeah, that'd be great.
I want to wait. So I always let the guests ask or the host ask if they want to have it done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin you for a second.
Yeah.
And pin to the first screen. And I'm going to take a picture and we're going to do this live.
Perfect.
So all you have to do is look right at the camera. All right. We got you there. So now I'm going to go to share screen. We're going to have some fun with your face.
Let's do it.
So there's a few things here, and I'm going to use some arrows. So we're going to do one here. We're going to grab this right here because this one's a big, big one. You weren't in an accident or anything with this area right here, were you?
No.
Okay. All right. I did say this one time and somebody's like, yeah, I was in a bicycle accident. Okay. So you got this part. We're going to talk about this part of your chin. We're going to talk about your eyelid. And we're going to talk about this area right here. All right. So we'll kind of, I'll move these across. We'll do one at a time. So if we read faces, and look, it is face reading. I just call it decoding facial features because as soon as I say face reading, people go, ooh, can you read palms too? And no, I can't.
Right. So
all
good.
Right, so the first one here that we're looking at is this is called a brow ridge. So I know you're a process-driven person. So if I'm selling you something, I'm going to say, these are all the steps that are involved because I can't just give me your money, here's a finished product. You like to understand what's involved in the process. So if I'm going to be giving you that information, here's phase 1, here's phase 2, here's phase 3, here's phase 4. Now, people who don't have a brow ridge, you can just say, hey, here's what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to deliver in the end. But people who have that brow ridge are process-driven people who like to understand what's going on and be involved in the process. So that's that first box that's right here.
Which is super true, by the way. That was spot on. Yes.
Right here is people who have fuller upper eyelids are more we than me people. So what it is I was raised in the day and age of Dr. Seuss. So I like to say, the more lid you see, the more they think in terms of we. So if I'm talking to you, I would use a lot of inclusive language. Well, once we get started on a project, then once we get going, use we and like inclusive terms when I'm talking to you. The other part here is you have very low eyebrows like this, and you have high ears. So those are people who visually understand something very fast, and high ears as they hear things very fast too. So what that means is you're kind of a double threat person where you get things so fast that you have a tendency to interrupt other people. It's not to be rude. It's because you want to mentally help them get there as fast as you did. Does that make sense?
Spot on, my friend. I've been working on it my whole life.
This area right here, well, let me change back to the arrow. So this is called the feisty bump. That little bump in your nose right in this area here means nicest guy until we back you into a corner. Then you're going to come out kicking and screaming. But it's got to get you quite a bit to get there.
Wow, it's good.
Yeah. Now, here's what I was also talking about earlier. Let me go back to boxes. If you look, you have larger ears, and you've got pretty good size eyes, but your ears look a little bit larger than your eye. So I would guess that you're an auditory person first and then visual second, but I would test it because it's close. So when I'm talking to you, I'd say things like, does it sound like a good idea? What I think I'm hearing you say, and I look and see, is that how you talk and how you respond? Now, if somebody's got small ears and larger eyes, then I'd say things like, well, if you see where I'm coming from, picture this. I'm still selling the same product, but I'm talking to how do they take in information. Like
Powerful.
I said, yeah, for you, you're kind of a double threat, but it looks to me like larger ears. So I would say auditory things first. Like, hey, it sounds like what you're looking for in a house is this. Or
Sure.
since you had a mortgage background, it sounds like you're a little bit concerned about the interest rate with your house. I would say terms that are auditory.
Makes total sense.
Then here's one that some people like and some people don't. I'll take a chance that you're a good sport about it. People whose eyes angle down, and we're actually going to cover this in the slides later, worry about the downsides first. Hey, and not negative, Nancy, but hey, have you thought about this? What could potentially go wrong? It's the people who are making sure that we're not just pie in the sky, but
Mm.
have thought out everything that we need to take care of. So, for example, when I used to be, when I first got started, you saw as a kid, my eyes angled down quite a bit. Well, when I started out on the help desk, the reason I was so good is I was good at anticipating what could go wrong instead of, well, why isn't it working? I would start thinking, well, I bet it's this, I bet it's that. So I was good at troubleshooting for a while. Now, when I got into sales and out of technology, what do you have to focus on? The positive things of your products. And when I got into speaking, my eyes actually went from angling down to angling up. So if you saw that picture of me younger, my eyes were very angled down. My parents were great. And they're like, hey, go for what you want. But, things don't always work out. What's your backup plan? What else are you going to do? So that's how I grew up thinking. And so there is no right or wrong facial feature. It's just how do you take in and process information? I used to sell technology to jails and prisons. So here you're talking to people who sit very stoic the entire time like this. And I knew when I went into a room, if their eyes angled down, I would talk about why it wasn't the first generation of our product. This is actually the second or third generation of our product. So this is what we learned from our mistakes. This is the feedback we've got from customers. Now, if their eyes angle up, I would do the opposite. So how do we put that into real estate? Well, somebody's going to be worried about, okay, listing your house as an example. I know what you're thinking. People are going to come through the house. Is somebody going to steal your stuff? Really, people that come and do houses, we verify who they are. Usually we ask for a letter of credit ahead of time, so they're people that are going to come in through. I know that's a concern I'd have. So you can address the downsides of whatever you're doing. Is it that they don't want to move? Their idea of packing their house, if their eyes angle up, you talk about all the positives of selling. So, wait, we're going to get you top dollar for this. And these are the reasons why. And once you get, so you just learn you're selling the same product, which is you, but you're going to sell based on what their face tells you about them and how they prefer information. I kind of got off the topic for a second. You have that Cupid's bow right here. So watch, when I draw this arrow, look how it fits in nicely into your lip. That's a subconscious sign that says, listen to me when I talk. And then the last two here, this one is a good one right here. I'm going to disappear it so people can see how deep that line is. That's called the verbal affirmation line. So if you've ever read The 5 Love Languages by Chapman, affirmation are a big one for you. So not a, hey, thanks, specific thanks for what you do go a long, long way, which doesn't surprise me. You help students. And so one of the things is, that what you're doing is helping people. And anybody who's a speaker, teacher, trainer, what do we want to know that what we put together made a difference? I guarantee you, when you first got started, you probably didn't have that deep of a line like you have right now.
That is unreal. I mean, that is so spot on. That's incredible. I mean, and that's what my life's work is all about, is exactly what you just said.
Yeah. So it's what your face just tells me about you. So yes, I looked you up. I watched a few of your videos, but nothing about that told me it's your face. It's what it reveals just looking at. And the last one right here this is called the adaptability cleft. So what that is when people have that one's more a genetic one, but what they found with that is people who have that one is they're highly adaptable. We can throw you into any situation on the fly and you can adjust.
It's powerful stuff, Brian. That's I mean, because you're right. I mean, what you said before is like there is a level of skepticism, right? In the beginning. Absolutely. And like just for the last 10 minutes, it's like, all right, let's do this. And now how spot on that was incredible. And the thing I like about it is when we talk about communicating to different personality styles, there requires some communication in order for you to figure out who am I speaking with. This doesn't require any of that. If you just have a picture of a person, you can learn so much about them. That's why the proactive piece, when you said it was a game changer, and I know we use those words a lot, people like you and I, but it truly is. The proactive, if you get a picture of a prospect in which you're going to have a meeting with, how much we can learn about that person without ever having communicated with them in the past is incredible, truly.
You think about it, when you go to meet with someone, do you run comps ahead of time? Do you
Sure.
do all these things, right? You're doing research and looking and you're thinking, how am I going to prepare this presentation? So I used to be, I got, like I said, a total nerd growing up, introvert. I picked jobs that everybody had to come to me. Retail,
Mm,
waited tables, bartender, bouncer, you name it. What did I do when I got into IT? I went into the help desk. Why? People had to come to me. I wasn't good at going to them. But when
mm.
I learned to be curious about them through their body language and through their faces, people can tell when you're focused on them or when you're pushing an agenda. So we showed in the slides earlier about the person who makes it all about them. We're all repelled by that person. We just think you're in it for the commission. And truthfully, I went through one. Somebody came in, I was selling a house, and they're like, well, this is the market value. I'm like, no, it's not. I've done the research. And the downside is, in a lot of professions, people think you're in it for you, not in to help the family. So I found a realtor that I was then buying a house later, and I had a more expensive one and I had a less expensive one. And he said, I know you like the more expensive one, but this is the problem with the way it was designed and created and where it's going to have issues. So it wasn't about his commission. It's about getting me in the right place.
1,000%. And let me just add something to that, which we teach our students all the time is, doing it from a place of authenticity, but often speaking against what could be perceived against your own interest is one of the fastest ways to build trust and rapport. Because most commission salespeople are not going to speak against their own interest because of your point. And so in order to do that, to serve somebody means to put their interests before yours. Everybody knows that. And so how do we verbalize that in a two-way communication? It's actually to speak against your own interest for the other person's interest. So it's amazing.
And look, it was somebody providing the same industry can provide the same service, but two different experiences.
That's right.
I think I refer from now on everybody
100%.
to the one who helped me.
Yeah, smart. Love it. Makes total sense.
So I'll show you real fast. I forgot where my screens were here.
Yeah.
Move back over. Right. Go back so I can see your face too. Okay. So this is an example. This is my coach, Steve Sims, is actually how I ended up speaking. He wasn't my first stage, but he was my coach who helped me get a lot more speaking gigs and put myself out there. This is just his LinkedIn profile. And every single one of these things on his face tell me something about him. And so this is just an example of, you can go and see every one of those things. The one I'm going to point out on his, it's a little bit different, are two. One, you can't see the shape of his eyebrows. So they're called chameleon eyebrows. That's a consensus builder. It means people have to get closer to us to distinguish that we have something different. So people who have chameleon eyebrows are known as consensus builders. They're great at negotiations because people think, oh, they're just like me. Now, on the opposite of that, he's got where he grew out his goatee here. That's a chin extender. So what he's trying to say is I can take one on the chin. I can handle more than other people do. And that's why casting directors for movies and television, they're great at understanding people's facial features. They probably haven't been trained formally. But think about the movie 300. What did they have the actors do? Grow out those big epic beards. And it was 300 against thousands of the Persian army.
Interesting.
Yes.
Wow.
And so one of the things, look, I did not come up with this. It's been around since the Greeks. I still show people my nerdery book here that I got years ago, where I went in and studied every single facial feature of what it is. There's 250 different facial features that are possible, but anyone can learn this. That's the most important thing. Now, I will tell you, book's good, but it's overwhelming. So what I was always a fan of is I ended up buying flashcards, which I help him sell now. And they helped me out because I learned one thing at a time instead of everything at once. It was too much overwhelm in the book.
So real quick, where can people find those? Are those on your website?
Yeah, subtleskills.com. Yep. Or one of the things I forgot to mention earlier, if anybody is interested in what they heard today, they can go to get the cheat sheet, and every feature that we're going to cover today, they can get a cheat sheet that they can download. It's a PDF and carry it with them.
So what I'm going to do for everybody listening or watching on YouTube, I will put a link to that beneath this in the show notes, and you guys can just click the link and grab that cheat sheet. So Brian, we appreciate you for that.
Of course. Here's the big thing that I love. Body language is huge, but like we're talking about right now, I can't see your arms crossed, legs crossed. I don't even know if you're wearing pants, right? We're on Zoom.
I'm not going to tell you either. That's a surprise.
Exactly. But if I did the entire Zoom meeting like this, talking to you, right? We're going to be like, hey, my eyes are up here. Well, that's the problem with body language. I think everyone should pay attention to it, But if you focus on it too much, you're missing being in the present moment with people.
Mm,
Body language books, these are the three I recommend. That same website I gave you, I put all the books that we talked about. So they can just go and buy them there. They're
perfect.
not my books, they're just really good books. The first one here is What Does My Body Language Say About Me? That's the book You Say More Than You Think by Janine Driver. Second one is What Every Body Is Saying. It's reading other people's body language. And then Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. That's just a great negotiation book. Everybody needs these three books that are here.
Smart. Yep.
Yes. We were talking earlier, they've got a sample of this because of you. So this is the voice, and anybody who's ever watched it, all the judges started with their back like this. And if they liked what they heard, then they turn around to see the people. Well, what you see is on all four judges, what do they have? Large ears and small eyes. So you know they're auditory people. Well, people go, well, they're musicians. Doesn't that just prove the point even more? They're more auditory driven than they are visual.
Wow.
So you can go, okay, let's take another season. Same thing, large ears, small eyes on every single judge.
Interesting. Super interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Now every person we look at, we see, we're gonna be like, all right, let me see what I can learn about this person. Does that happen to people when they first get introduced to this?
Oh, absolutely. And you know what the best side effect of it is? People know you're paying attention to them instead
that's
of
great.
distracted by everything else. So the worst that people get is you think, do they have larger ears or eyes? Still giving someone your attention the entire time. Now I'm going to teach eyebrows in a minute. And the reason I teach eyebrows is because eyebrows lead to eye contact, which is a rare skill this day and age.
Yeah, that's great.
Here's some artists. What do you see? They all have very large eyes. You know, you go the one over here on the end, he cut off an ear. He didn't think it was that important. So for people who this, I would use visual terms. I would text them. I would send them an email. I'd say, hey, do you see where I'm coming from? Picture this. So you're saying the same thing, but you're helping people get there. So the analogy is, I used to be a really obnoxious traveler when I was a kid, and everywhere I went, I thought they should speak English. And if they don't, I'll speak English louder, right? That's
sure.
obnoxious. But we do that when we push our own agenda and we don't think about how the other person takes in and processes information. So just overview, are they auditory, are they visual, or are they kinesthetic hands-on learners? And then all you do is you start using wording to speak their language. So let's talk about what's an important part of your business. You have to market yourself. So in your flyers, do you have auditory terms, visual terms, and kinesthetic? So kinesthetics, hands-on movement related terms. Do you have all that in your marketing material? Because if you don't, then you're alienating a third of the population, no matter which way you go.
Great point.
So, yeah. So when I used to put RFPs and things together in PowerPoint slides, I would put in visual words, kinesthetic words, and auditory words for that very reason.
Super strong. Yeah, that's great.
So now we'll get into the fun. I call this section just browsing. And if you don't think eyebrows are important, go ahead and Google people without eyebrows. This is what will show up in Google. So you can see, you take famous celebrities you've always known, but you get rid of their eyebrows and they look different. And you go, okay, you just got rid of eyebrows. It doesn't matter. Okay. What if you draw eyebrows on something? How much does it change it? So here you have the picture of babies. This one always makes me laugh. Draw the angled eyebrows, and how evil does that kid look? It looks like an evil laugh instead of a baby laughing.
Unbelievable. That's incredible.
So we pay more attention than we think. One last example of that. Who would you rather talk to? The person on the left or the person on the right? We always are looking for eyebrows. So the reason for that, if you read a book called The Like Switch, which is another book by an FBI agent, and it's a book about how they used to teach other FBI agents how to flip assets to spy against their own country. So he was in the behavioral analysis unit, and he would teach them how do they get in front of people. Well, in the book, it says, if you want to be seen as a friend, when you walk into a room, raise your eyebrows up, tilt your head, and smile. If you're seen as a foe, you walk into a room and you squint because you're seeing what's going on. That was a ancestral safety thing. When a new person entered our environment, we looked at their eyes first to judge the intent. After that, we go to look at their hands to see, do they have something that can kill me? So that's why when you're being told, keep your hands out of your pockets, don't have your hands behind your back, these are the reasons why. But where did we go first? We went to the eyebrows.
And that book, Brian, was The Light Switch?
The Like Switch. So it's got a picture like a light switch, but it's Like.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So our eyebrows are filters. They tell us how do we take in process information. So I mentioned earlier, we talk about faces quite a bit. So if you're a humor fan, like I am, then there's highbrow humor and lowbrow humor. Highbrow humor is when somebody tells you a joke and you got to think about it for a minute and then you laugh. Lowbrow humor is Jackass Three Stooges, where you laugh immediately as soon as you hear it. So when you start looking at people, when you see someone who has high eyebrows, you can think of like a speed bump in the middle of their head. So if data's trying to race down to get into their eye, it can only go so fast, go over the speed bump, and then try and speed up again. So if you're talking to who do you want me to talk about, a buyer or a seller?
Seller.
Seller. If somebody's selling their house, you're going to have to give them the information and go, you know what? I know you're going to need some time to think about this. It's an important decision. This is a house you've lived in for X amount of time. And there's always that comfortability of your home. So let me give you the information again. Let me give you some time to think about it. So they need time. If you see high eyebrows and you force the one call close, that's where buyer's remorse kicks in.
Interesting.
Best case scenario, they stay with you, but they'll never refer you. Worst case scenario, they back out of the contract and they never refer you. So you just have to learn based on their eyebrow height. Do they make decisions fast or slow? So you have to almost, if you got 30 minutes, you're probably going to talk to them the whole 30 minutes. Now, the opposite of that is if somebody's eyebrows, like yourself, are very close to your eye, the longer I talk, the more I lose you. Because you're thinking, look, I already decided to sell my house. So I'm here just to work out the details with you. Let's get to the specifics. Don't tell me this pie in the sky story about all these things you're going to do. Just tell me tactically, because you have the brow ridge, what is all the steps involved to get my house sold?
1000% spot on. And so this would be the difference between an analytical and a driver personality. The driver personality is like, just give it to me straight. What do we need to do to get this thing done? And the more you talk, the more you lose them. So spot on.
So you can just start looking at people and go, okay, here's 5 people. If I know they need time, person number 1, I can go quick. 2, go quick. Number 3 is going to need time. Number 4 is going to need the most amount of time. And number 5 is a quick. So you just start learning when you're talking to people. Now, that's just eyebrow height. So we'll show you one more thing because I don't want to overload your audience, but there's 3 basic shapes of eyebrows. This one for me was the biggest one that when I started looking at this really helped me. And that is straight eyebrows, get straight to the point. So we even look what I talked about earlier, television and movies. There's Spock. What does he have? Straight eyebrows. So think facts, figures, data. So because we're dealing with a seller, I'm going to get to the point of, hey, look, once we list your house, this is probably how many days it's going to take to sell. This is the price we're going to sell it for. This is how many days do you want to move out? Facts, figures, data.
Sure.
On the buyer side, what are you interested in? A 3-3, a 2-2? Is it square footage more important? Facts, figures, data, right? So if it's the seller, they just want to know how much can they sell their house for. If it's the buyer, what interest rate, what payment, what size, how many rooms, how many bathrooms. Angled eyebrows. So I have the angled eyebrows. You saw a picture of me as a kid. I used to have straight eyebrows. But once I had to learn the material because I became a corporate trainer and then I started learning and I was teaching other people, that's where I got angled eyebrows. So if you look, you've got a little bit of straight and then your eyebrows angle as well. So angled eyebrow people are, what's my angle? Help me understand it first so then I can teach it to others. So when you see somebody with angled eyebrows, they're not villain eyebrows, but they're authoritarian eyebrows. And they're people who want to be included in the process. So I probably drove my realtor nuts who helped me sell my house because they're like, oh, we're going to do these things. I'm like, explain to me how you're going to do it. Because I wanted to know. And, I had them list the house for $30,000 more than they wanted to. And I got it.
Sure.
So,
of course.
Involve me in the process. I'm going to do my own research. And that's what you see people with angled eyebrows. What's my angle? Help me be involved in the process. And then I can help other people. Well, who were the other people? I was wanting to help my wife and kid. So when you see angled eyebrows, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you just have to know they think, what's their angle first? Help them understand it, then they'll help other people. Now, on the opposite side of that is rounded eyebrow people. By the way, if you want to get some hatred, post a picture of these 2 people on the internet and people will tell you all the reasons why you're right or wrong. So
no doubt.
Yeah, if you need some polarizing stuff, post Oprah and Elon out there. But what they both happen to have are rounded eyebrows. Rounded eyebrow people think about the people around them first and themselves second. So if you're, for example, let's go to the seller side of the house. Look, I know when you start doing this, you're thinking, my kids are in school at this certain school. They've got friends that are local. Can we find another house in the area? I know those are some of your concerns. So it's not them directly, but the people around them. So if you're talking to the husband he's got around it, maybe he cares about the wife. Is it the kids? Is it the dog? Is it the neighbors? But if they've got angled eyebrows, what's more important to them? So you start doing these things. So for example, if I was on the selling side, or sorry, the buying side, and I'm working with some people who want to buy a house, I wouldn't say what's the most important room to you. I would say, what are the other rooms for? Are you looking to entertain? Or other people going to come to your house? Now, this one, if they're buying, I'm going to say, what is the most important room to you? Why? Because it's what's their angle. Help them understand.
Got it. Okay.
What are you going to use the house for? And then we talked about straight eyebrows are, what are you looking for? 3322 interest payment. What do facts, figures, data.
Got
So
it. Super good.
yeah, if you look at Oprah, regardless of your political opinion, is what was her show always about? Who she interviewed and what she did for her audience. It wasn't, even though it was titled under her name, the show wasn't about her. It was about the other people. So it's an easy way to remember it.
It's great.
So then you start looking at people again, you just think, okay, she's got kind of straight eyebrows, get straight to the point. He's definitely straight. So you just, again, if you're selling, what price do you want to list it for? What terms do you want in the contract? For her, I know you have these concerns so that when you sell your house, you're going to miss your neighbors. Your kids are going to go to a new school. Angled eyebrow, look, this is the best reason to sell your house. This is what's in it for you. And then you look over here, straight eyebrows. So you start talking to people based on their facial features, and it basically helps you with it.
It's really clear, just a couple of those last points, just with the eyebrow, you're right. I mean, the eyebrow, you can learn a lot real quick. And if you could just learn those on the flashcards, are they close or are they far apart? And what shape are they? And that tells you a lot right there.
And the best part is that when you can do it, you can instantly just think, okay, I only have to know 5 things. High or low, what are the 3 shapes? And that's enough. Again, because you're looking at their eyebrows, guess what you get? Eye contact. And people know that they're thinking about them, not what your commission is going to be.
Smart.
So you can
just great stuff, Brian.
Yeah. Like when you start looking at people, you just start seeing them differently. So you just look at people and go, okay, look, rounded eyebrow, straight eyebrow, different things. And you just start thinking, okay, it's real easy. And that is you find the feature, you assess what it means, you know what you want to say, but you convert it to how do I speak their language? And then you express it back to them. And that's pretty much it. So I don't want to bog you down with slides, but I want to show you 2 other ones. And that is, where do I tell my students or people who take my courses to go practice this on? Everywhere you go, that's somebody that's providing a service. Coffee shops, bartenders, wait staff, people at the hotel, at the airport. That's why I mentioned earlier about how to get free food and drinks. Well, because if you go in and you go, hey, I watched this podcast with this guy, Brian. I kind of think he's full of crap. Can I tell you what he taught me? Can I ask you if it's true? Well, all of a sudden you make them feel seen and heard. That's how you get free food and drinks. If I went to a hotel, and we'll just use this one because I know we're running out of time here in a minute, but walk up to the desk. If they had straight eyebrows, I'd like an upgrade, please. If they had angled eyebrows, are you the person who can help me get an upgrade? If they had rounded eyebrows, oh, that flight was just brutal. I just wish I had more room to kind of stretch out in and kind of walk around. Are there any upgrades available? So I'm asking for an upgrade, but I'm going to ask 3 different ways depending on who's sitting at the desk.
I love this, Brian. This is super powerful, and again, it's like until I just went through this with you, I had no idea what to expect myself. And so what's on screen right now, this is where if we scan this, we can just find out more about you, your courses, and all that stuff. Is that right?
Yeah. Download the cheat sheet. So I want everybody just get the cheat sheet, try that out, and then you'll reach back out to me. So you can go there, all the books that we mentioned today, or just links to follow me on social media there.
Man, I cannot thank you enough. I mean, super valuable. I mean, I have a page and a half of notes myself, right? And I'm going to go back and watch this and study this because I think you nailed it. I think that it doesn't matter what you're doing. There's no downside to adding this to the tool belt. It can only help you get better.
Right.
Yeah.
The number one concern is just like anything else. People are like, they're going to know. They don't know. That's why I call the company Subtle Skills, because unless you tell people that you've learned how to decode facial features, people just think you're giving them your time and attention, and you are, but you're learning from it at the exact same time.
It's amazing stuff. I appreciate you very much. I know the audience will too. And so I'd love to have you back on the show in the near future after we kind of learn a little bit more about this. Maybe, and one quick thought, I don't know if you'd be open to this or not, but maybe we get just all of our coaching clients on a webinar, and maybe we go even deeper where people can interact, ask you some questions, and we do a training live for that group if you're open to it.
Absolutely. It's what I love doing. This skill changed my life. And what I love about the guy that taught to me, Matt Fulfer, was he was an attorney. He learned it for jury consulting. And he could have hoarded that knowledge, but instead he realized the applications of it, and he was open to teaching other people. I was lucky enough to get to meet him. He retired after COVID. I took over speaking, doing this. It's a skill that changed my life. And what I want to do is help other people change their life also.
So good. Guys, I'll put the link in the description. Brian, we appreciate your time today, and I'm sure we'll talk to you soon.
Yes.